Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm Carlos Moncada, Director of Client Services at InfoReady, and I'm coming to you live from Ann Arbor, Michigan. We're really excited about the webinar today. It's a peer spotlight webinar where we're focusing on limited submissions, and we've got 4 great panelists today for our discussion. I would like to introduce the panelists. So I have bios that I will read for each panelist, and bear with me as I run through these really quickly. So first, I'd like to introduce Alyssa von Lehman Lopez. She's the Research and Proposal Development Manager at Colorado School of Mines. Alyssa provides proposal management and writing support, analyzes and communicates funding opportunities, arranges faculty professional learning, and manages internal competitions. Prior to joining Mines in 2022, Alyssa was a grants officer at the Denver Museum of Nature and Sciences. And prior to that, worked in the Office of Sponsored Research at Metropolitan State University of Denver. We're happy to have Alyssa here today. Next on screen, Jalon Martin from Rice University. Jalon serves as the Coordinator of Research Development in Rice University's Office of Research Development Services. He specializes in the organization of the limited submission process and broadcasting federal and state funding opportunities to the campus. Jalon's background is in cognitive and computational neuroscience from his time at Michigan State University and business administration from Prairie View A&M University. His experience also includes coordinating medical research as well as academic support services for students. I also found out that Jalon and I are from the same hometown, so that's pretty cool. Next, we have Gabriella K-N-A-Nina. I messed it up. I practiced so much.
You did a good job. Did a good job.
Melted under the pressure. But Gabrielle manages limited submissions at Texas A&M University, collaborating with sponsors, system members, and investigators to streamline the submission process and enhance research opportunities. Previously, Gabriella was an administrative head at the California Institute of Technology, or Caltech. There, she led a team of research administrators and served on institutional boards to improve administrative efficiency and compliance with federal research guidelines. Gabriella holds an MBA from Franciscan University of Steubenville and a BA in social sciences from Colorado State University, Pueblo. I even had a pronunciation key. Last but not least, Kendra Hillman is a project coordinator for Arizona State University within the Research Development Office. She manages the functional group of opportunity management, which includes limited submissions, research-related nominations, and internal grants. Thanks, Kendra, for joining us. Okay, that was a lot of talking, introducing everyone. I'm so glad to have these panelists here, but you came to listen to them, so we'll get started with the panel discussion, and we'll get into some basic questions with each panelist first, so that we have a good baseline understanding of what kind of research and limited submissions are done on each campus and their general approach. So top left on my screen is Gabriella. So we'll start with you. Gabriella, tell us a little bit more about your role in limited submissions, how long you've been doing it there, and how many limited submissions you manage a year, what types, because I know in some institutions, for example, that have a medical school, especially a large medical school, maybe they handle them on their own. But give us a little bit of background on limited.
I've been at A&M for about a couple years now, managing limited submissions. And I think because of the nature of A&M, it's a large institution. We handle everything centrally, and I think that's just to keep everything clear. In our last fiscal year, we managed over 350 limited submissions opportunities. About 15% of those were from foundations, with most of the remainder being federal opportunities. So that's kind of how we organize within A&M.
Thanks so much. Next, Kendra, that you're next on my screen, so we'll go with you.
Great, thank you. I've been at ASU, like Carlos said, about 2 years managing limited submissions, and that includes any research-related nominations and any internal grants, but my main focus is limited submissions. I manage and run probably right around 200 opportunities a year. Most of those are from federal sponsors, but we also work with philanthropic and corporate, but our main chunk of that is federal.
Great, thanks so much. Jalon, question to you. Tell us a little bit more about limited submissions at Rice University.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been at Rice about a year now, managing limited submissions. I will say within the past 6 months or so, early on, I managed just federal, state. Within the past 6 months, I've moved more towards assisting in corporate and foundation research opportunities as well. So what I do is kind of connect our OCFR office and our ORD offices. And unfortunately, I don't have a number like Gabriella and Kendra did about the number of limited submissions we do. But even though Rice is a smaller university, definitely a lot smaller than A&M and probably smaller than ASU as well, we still push out a lot of opportunities to our faculty and staff. I think that's it.
Thanks. And they're time intensive too. So no matter the number, they are time intensive. And Alyssa, tell us a little bit more about limited submission landscape at Colorado School of Mines.
Yes, thanks, Carlos. At Colorado School of Mines, I've been doing limited submission work for about almost 3 years now, so as long as I've been at Mines. And it's maybe about 10 to 15% of my overall job. Mines is a smaller institution and it's a STEM-focused institution. And we don't have a medical school. So our scale of limited submissions is much smaller, and we're not going after, a whole slew of NIH stuff. We have a little tiny crew of faculty who would actually be applying for NIH. So that adds up to an average of about 30 limited submission competitions a year. So much smaller than the numbers that the others have said. About 30 federal, I should say, and about 8 to 10 foundation opportunities per year, although those opportunities are managed by our corporate and foundation relations team. So I don't have to do all the work around those. We also use InfoReady for, we have a seed grant program for getting people set up for submitting competitive external proposals. So we run those through InfoReady, and then internal opportunities that come up here and there. For example, we had some endowment funds become available that we held an internal competition for to use as supplemental funds on existing grant work. And then just this last year, we used InfoReady for our internal process to select projects for congressional appropriations. We kind of had a loose process around selecting projects in the past, and we decided this year to formalize it using InfoReady. So these are the projects that, we're talking to our Congress people about, what used to be called earmarks. So it worked well for us as well. And there are other opportunities. I think we'd like to talk to the graduate school office. I think they would appreciate this system, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Right. Thanks so much, Alyssa. So now that we have a baseline understanding of how each institution, the landscape of limited submissions at each institution, let's dig in a little more. But first, I have a follow-up question for Alyssa. You mentioned a bunch of different types of processes. Are you involved in all of those? Man,
I am involved in the seed grants, and I was involved in the congressional appropriations. The foundation piece, I was happy to have a colleague kind of take over being the point of contact for those.
right. So sometimes you're just switching gears, different types of processes, different stakeholders involved internally. So sounds like you stay busy with a wide portfolio there.
And I just kind of graphed it yesterday, the limited submission activity that we've done. And it has been increasing steadily every year since I started in 2022. And fiscal year 25, which we're just a little over halfway through, we are already at almost double the number of limited submissions. So for whatever reason, this year has been extra busy with the number of limited submission opportunities that we are dealing with. I don't know if others have had that experience as well.
Congratulations on more limited submission activity. That
Really?
means, yeah, no, that's a positive sign. Because I think that means your faculty, your researchers are interested in more opportunities, and you're finding them for them. So that's
Yeah, I think part of it's my learning curve of I know more now about what opportunities are going to be relevant to faculty, and so putting them on InfoReady, whereas maybe in the past I wasn't aware of those opportunities, or we didn't think we'd have enough interest to warrant an internal competition, and now we're seeing more interest. So kind of a combination of those factors.
Oh, I got it. And so I'll take this to the other panelists here. Gabriella, haven't heard from you in a while. What kind of growth have you seen on campus for limited submissions?
We've seen growth both in the number of limited submissions opportunities that we've been posting and also in activity within our institution. So we have more and more faculty who are interested, who are applying. So that's been nice to see that we are finding opportunities that they're interested in, that's aligning well with their research.
Got it. Is there any particular area that's growing more, research focus area growing more at Texas A&M than others?
So for our campus, kind of more popular is an NSF, Department of Energy, and we are trying to grow more towards additional medical research with NIH sponsors, those kinds of type of funding opportunities. But so far, a lot of our activity we see across NSF and Department of Energy. I'm just talking about limited submissions.
Yeah, it makes sense. A lot of energy in Texas, so makes sense that that's a area of research that's emphasized. Well, Jalon, how about at Rice? What kind of growth in limited submissions have you seen?
Yeah, there actually has been a decent amount of growth, kind of like Gabriella was saying, not only in what we post as a university, but also how active our faculty is going after it. I know our VPR implemented a kind of like an incentive program where he would extend funding dollars for people who just even went after certain opportunities. So if they were awarded, they would get their award, but they would also receive something from the university as well. And I think that was a good incentive of kind of ramping it up, especially for our mid-level faculty who are kind of yeah, I feel like the early career faculty are very ambitious, going for a lot of opportunities. And then once they get to the mid-career, they might slow down a little bit, but that was a way of picking that up. So we have seen a good increase amongst all opportunities, federal, state, corporate, and especially foundations. Is there anything else I'm missing or?
Well, here's a follow-up to that. So as you're
Mhm.
seeing the growth in limited submissions on campus, that means that you're posting more and potentially more competition. How has InfoReady been helping you scale that up?
Oh, I think it has made the process a lot easier, especially being able to streamline it, and even within our university, um, kind of the offices collaborating together for different opportunities. Now, InfoReady has been able to give us the opportunity to kind of make one system, kind of like a straight pathway to get these opportunities in, get them through quicker, have our competitions, and push them out. So it's been very helpful bringing everybody together.
That's good. We're gonna drill into those topics a little more later as well. But I don't want to forget Kendra over here. Uh, Kendra, I know Arizona State, innovative campus, lots of people there. What's the growth of limited submissions been like there?
Yeah. As far as growth, so I've been in this position about 2 years, and I would say it's steady growth, but we've had a really good base anyway of people that are aware and interested in limited submissions, as well as the things that we are posting and putting out. So I think, there's always a little bit of growth, but luckily we are pretty established in that. And our faculty and research administrators are relatively, in touch with InfoReady and as well as those opportunities. So we have that good base there. But we are seeing a lot of growth in Arizona, with like some, trying to think of the word, sorry. Semiconductor, we're getting a lot of opportunities related to that here in Arizona. So I've seen a lot of growth in that area. Definitely kind of some STEM related engineering type of opportunities that we're growing a little more. Um, and then also we are growing our nominations, and I know that's a little different from limited submissions. Some of them are limited, but we are trying to grow that within InfoReady and using InfoReady to collect those applications as well.
Got it. Thanks. So uh, we're gonna move on to a related topic here. I think all of you are using Pivot to find funding opportunities. Um, how how do you interact with Pivot? Do you direct faculty members to search on Pivot and let you know? Tell me a little bit more about uh, Pivot's presence on campus. This one's to Kendra first, for finding opportunities.
Yeah, I check Pivot. I used to check it every Monday. That was kind of my thing. I've started checking it maybe every other week right now because we have a pretty good list of existing opportunities, as well as directing our faculty and research administration staff to use Pivot themselves. Because there was a time, especially when I first started and was getting the hang of it, I was posting a lot of opportunities from Pivot and not getting any applications for them. So we've definitely narrowed our search down to be a little more precise in what our faculty are interested in. And I do have, my limitations set up on Pivot, so it's a little more streamlined to be ASU related topics, right? So, but I do still use Pivot. We also have every single year, I believe it's during the summer, we have basically training sessions that we host for faculty. And one of those is always a Pivot training. So we encourage our faculty to use that, as well as our research administration staff. So they're able to use that, let us know if there's anything that's not posted already.
Got it. And then with the integration between Pivot and InfoReady, when you are told, hey, this is something I'm interested in,
Yeah,
you're doing the automatic push into
we're
InfoReady.
able to push it, which is wonderful. My favorite feature.
Oh, right. It's a time saver. Do you have a template in InfoReady that you push the Pivot opportunities into?
I do. Yeah. I have we created a updated template when the free form was updated, and that's what we use, and we've tailored that to have our requirements.
Right, thanks. Just clarifying note for people listening in, Freeform, also known as Form Designer. So when you're on the template selection
Yes.
and you click the drop down, it'll say Form Designer. We originally were going with the Freeform name, and then about a month before we started our beta testing with beta users, Apple released a new product called Freeform. So we dropped that.
Yes, I'm sorry. I did know that. In my mind, it's still Freeform, but I did know that it's called Form Designer. Okay.
Well, that's what we were promoting at first. But you know, Apple's just a little bit bigger than InfoReady, just a tad. um, so I'm going to be asking all of you a little bit more about how you find funding opportunities on campus and promote them. So, Alyssa, what are you doing at Minds for finding funding opportunities, promoting them to faculty members?
Yeah, so we also use Pivot, and I really rely on the curated lists that are pushed to my inbox. I don't actively go into Pivot as often as I let them send me the things that they think I'm interested in based on the parameters I've set. So that is one way we know about funding opportunities. Like Kendra mentioned, then there are those opportunities that we just know are cyclical on an annual basis, and our faculty are interested in them. So we keep our eyes on them, and we push them out in our newsletter every year when they come up. We are also signed up. So me and the other folks on my RD team are all signed up for all the different agency new communications and listservs. So DOE and NSF are our biggest two funders. We are signed up for all the different newsletters from all the different directorates and offices, and we call through those. We actually meet as a team weekly, so it's not a single person that has to manage all of this. We meet as a team weekly and look at all the different funding opportunities we've all seen come through, and we decide what to publish in our newsletter that goes out to all of research active faculty. And that we can't include everything because then people stop reading it and it's too long. So we try to focus on the things that are either going to generate the most interest amongst the broadest group of people, or things that are particularly large, or things that were related in the early days to the infrastructure legislation, like the bill and IRA laws. So, and we encourage faculty to really use all those sources as well. There's not one source. Like if you're just relying on our newsletter, you're not going to see everything related to your work. So we really do want more of our faculty to use Pivot themselves so they can tailor their own searches and really get the most relevant stuff for their specific research. So it is definitely a multi-pronged approach to really see everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's, people are busy, so you have to have multiple channels in which you're communicating out the information you want. If you just rely on one, they're likely to miss that, especially if you only send one email, one message about it.
And I also really like the push to InfoReady feature from Pivot. That's very helpful.
Big time saver for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Jalon, what are you doing at Rice to promote funding opportunities and help faculty members find them?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit different. I'm pretty much in Pivot almost every day, or at least every other day during the week. And a big part of that is, I think it has to do with the institutional push for the uptick in research, just making sure that we're getting more opportunities out, more things to our faculty. And so it a big part of my job is also doing searches for faculty members. A lot of times people will come to me and it helps give me a better idea of the research landscape at Rice, which is pretty expansive, if I had to say so myself. And there are a lot of things that I think that I probably would miss had I not met with certain faculty members to understand what they're working on. So Pivot is something that I'm using a lot, but I also use Grants.gov, the different funder websites, NSF, NIH. So I am looking at those things as well. And like everybody mentioned already, definitely using the push to InfoReady right out of Pivot. That's time saver. I feel like it can't be overstated enough.
Big time saver. Yeah. And this is going to dovetail into two-part question for Gabriella here. First, I'm going to ask you to the same question I was just asking everyone else, but also with 200 to 300 limited submission opportunities that you're finding, that you're promoting. So how are you finding and promoting those? How many of those are leading into internal competitions in InfoReady? So full landscape there of that beginning part to you.
So yeah, use Pivot. I have a safe search with our particular parameters, and I have that just an automatic email. So I'm looking at Pivot and what it's finding for me weekly. Also, subscribe to all the listservs from sponsors, NIH, NSF, NASA. And then in addition to that, I have fantastic colleagues on my team who they don't manage limited submissions, but in their own role, when they're looking at opportunities, if they find something that's limited submit, they will send it my way. So I have great people on my team and also across campus, other RDs who will find something limited submit and will send it our way. So that's really, really nice that we all work together. And also sometimes faculty as well. They find limited submissions and they'll send it our way in addition. And it might be something that they're interested in or that they know just will be of interest on campus in general. And so we're promoting those in a variety of ways. So we have a weekly newsletter that we put out. In addition, we have a website. And so we post everything weekly on there, and then InfoReady. And so we direct our faculty, consistently to InfoReady to let them know that these are all of our open competitions that are running right now. And as far as, because I think A&M is a little bit different, that it is so large. We do cast the net pretty wide because we have such a diversity of research on campus. And of those over 350 opportunities, at least half have strong interest, and we're running internal competitions.
A lot of opportunities that go to competition.
Yeah, I'd say about half, but that ends up being quite a bit when we're casting the net so wide and we are posting so many.
Yeah, absolutely. And with so many going to competition, you probably have to line up a lot of reviewers. So tell us a little bit more about recruiting reviewers for all of that.
Well, the way we are organized is ultimately reviews are the responsibility of our research deans, but we offer a lot of flexibility within that model. So our research deans will have a committee. We at least like to have at least 3 committee members for those reviews. And typically for most competitions, those research deans will be representative of whoever has applied. So whatever college you're applying from, it'll be that research dean. If needed, we can also add subject matter experts. So within InfoReady, we have a database where we're interested in volunteering to serve on a review committee can do that, and they share within InfoReady what their subject matter is they're an expert in. And so that's very helpful. So I can go to that database and pull reviewers from that. And then for our research deans, we have various models. They can be the sole reviewer. We can help them set up a committee so that they can have a proxy who can go in for them and submit the rankings and the feedback there. So we try to offer a lot of different models for them because it can be a lot because we do have so many limited submissions competitions, particularly for those colleges that are very active. For one person to be reviewing all those applications can be a bit much. So some of our research deans do appreciate having a committee. And sometimes it'll be formal, with one person serving as a formal proxy for a defined period of time, like 1 year. Other times it'll be more of an informal committee based on that competition that the research dean will go ahead and convene that committee in-house.
Great, thanks so much for that. It's you know, the review process is so important. And with so many reviewers needed, you definitely need a variety of approaches to meet your needs there. Kendra, how are you recruiting reviewers, assigning them in InfoReady? What's the review process look like at Arizona State?
Yeah. So also to start with the right around 200 opportunities that we post per year, we only have about 10 to 20 at the most actually go to a internal competition review, which is nice, I would say. So, I mean, that's definitely not half. Last year or fiscal year 2024, we had a lot, about 20 that did go to a review panel, but it's between like 10 and 20. So, and as far as reviewers, how we have it set up, and we are working on updating it a little bit. So maybe next year it'll change a little bit. But for right now, we have an ad hoc group of faculty, all interdisciplinary from different colleges and different subject matters. They are volunteer, also maybe some voluntold by RAs and RDs to kind of help with that process. And we try to have a pretty hefty list from our engineering college because a lot of our reviews are STEM based in that field somewhat. So we try to have an existing list that I pull from for our reviews. And a lot of times I send out those emails kind of in bulk, and I do want some subject matter focused people, but we do interdisciplinary as well. And how our review panels are set up, we also have a limited submission chairperson, which is an appointed faculty member that kind of helps also review those applications, kind of keeps our reviewers in conversation. You know, when we all meet together, he kind of guides that conversation and has his input there, just because I'm not qualified to read a lot of these applications. So they're able to help kind of facilitate that. And we do try to have at least 3 reviewers on our panel at a time. We ask them, you know, strengths, weaknesses, how well it fits the sponsor, and then a score 1 to 100. And the applicant doesn't see that, but it helps us, you know, keep it in rank. So that's kind of how it is set up. I don't know if you had I hope that answered everything. If you have a follow-up, let me know.
I do have a follow-up. So how many routing steps are you using in the competition? Because it sounds like there's 3 reviewers assigned per application in one part of it, but it sounds like it's multiple steps in the review process potentially.
Well, let me think. It's been so long since I've really messed with my routing steps since I have them set up. So we assign our reviewers, they're sent an email with instructions and the rubric essentially for reviewers. And then they put in strengths, weaknesses, fit with sponsor, any additional comments, and a score. And then I take that information and input it into my own Excel sheet that we then do the rankings, and that's what we review during our panel meeting. So what is that? Maybe 4 steps?
Okay. Okay. So that the initial subject matter review is being done in InfoReady, where you're collecting the information. Then you're actually
That's where our information is collected, and then I do input it into a different like Excel sheet to go over with our reviewers all together.
Got it. Okay. No, good to know. These are the nuts and bolts that, you know, everyone has to think through when they're managing the competitions that are occurring. Like, I think every campus is a little different, depending on multiple factors. Alyssa, haven't spoken to you in a while. How's that review process done at Minds? How are you recruiting reviewers? Do you have a panel? All the questions to you.
Yeah. I agree. There's not a one size fits all approach for how to do any of this from institution to institution. So at Colorado School of Mines, with the, maybe as many as 10 competitions requiring review panels every year. So again, a smaller number. We don't have a standing committee of people we pull from, mostly because it does seem like each one requires different subject matter experts. And we sometimes won't know what subject matter expertise will be most important until we see what gets submitted. So not only the focus of the particular NOFO, but who actually ends up submitting. We're so small that then I think sometimes finding reviewers that don't have a conflict of interest is a challenge as well. If it's a nuclear engineering opportunity, all of our nuclear engineers have probably applied, so we don't have another one who can serve as a neutral reviewer. I think there are definitely areas to improve. I have kind of a list that I keep in the back of my mind as people who have been good reviewers in the past and might have a more broad base of knowledge, more of a generalist who I can call on. But I would love to explore the idea of standing committee members and incentivizing that service by making it count toward their required service as faculty members. When you're asking folks to just volunteer their time, that is always a challenge. Especially I have found the faculty members who step up as really good reviewers. They're really thoughtful and engaged. They're often very overcommitted people because they get involved and engaged in a lot of things. So we've been managing with the number of actual committees, review committees, we need to pull together on an annual basis, but there are a lot of different strategies for how to do it, depending on the institution and the size. And so that's just kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, no, thanks. I have follow-up as well. This one's just a quick one. Due to the higher probability for conflicts of interest in some research areas at Minds, do you ever look for external reviewers, external subject matter experts?
I would say we are open to that possibility if it ever really feels like the best solution. We haven't, in the time I've been here, we haven't gone to an external reviewer. Well, I will say we've engaged like we have some consultants who kind of work with us on federal relations type things. So they might know the Department of Energy really well. So they are kind of adjacent to us. They're not staff, but we're paying them for their support. There have been a few instances where we've asked those types of people to serve on our review committees.
Oh, okay. No, thanks for that additional information. This is a quick tip for everyone on the call. InfoReady does accommodate external reviewers. So if you have someone outside your institution who you want to assign a review to, you can do that in InfoReady. Just put in their email address and the account's automatically created for them. They're pinged with information about an account being created for them and with the review assignment. So if it ever gets to that point for you, InfoReady has you covered. Jalon, we've been talking about managing reviewers, recruiting reviewers, how the review process is done in InfoReady. What's the situation at Rice with managing reviews in InfoReady?
Yeah. So Rice sounds like we're a little bit different. We actually do utilize a standing committee of about 10 to 12 members from various disciplines across campus. For their time, I think they are compensated with some type of resource or incentive, but something to just help them because obviously they are very busy. And I think the idea behind using the standing committee is obviously for some type of consistency, but also having the non-expert members reviewing as well, to give, like, if we're looking at a harder science, a competition for something in the hard sciences, having someone who's from the humanities also look at it and be able to provide their feedback, their insight, just to produce well-rounded proposals overall. So we do utilize a standing committee. I was not familiar with InfoReady, which we're just saying offering external reviewers. So that is something good to keep in mind, and maybe that could be something that we introduce on our campus. But for the most part, we have our standing committee, and sometimes we'll utilize ad hocs. That part of the process we're still working on, but for the most part, everything goes through our committee.
Right. Oh, thanks for that rundown. Little different than what other people are saying. That's why it's nice having a few different panelists to get a few different views. Another note, InfoReady has a routing step called committee ranking that facilitates the more traditional committee meeting where you have a point person that would be the one that enters in the committee's consensus decision on each application. So we can do committee ranking, committee approval, all that stuff in there. Really a nice feature. So we're going to move on to Q&A. We've got some questions that came in. So let's answer these audience questions. First, if you have a list of the limited submission opportunities you post yearly, how do you manage the list and decide when to post? Do you wait for the new solicitation if it is not yet renewed? Gabriella, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, so we do have a list of recurring opportunities that we're going to be posting. We actually keep that in a list in Monday. So that's how we manage it because it does have a push with reminders. So we use that. And we have a limited submissions policy which determines our most of the time. So for recurring opportunities, we like to post as soon as possible. So that's going to be anywhere between 6 to 8 months before the sponsor's due date. For some of those that are recurring, like an NSF or an NIH, where those due dates are known, that's kind of an easy one to post. For others, for foundations that have those recurring opportunities and they've been very steady and consistent in those postings, they might not. Oftentimes foundations don't actually update their websites with the opportunity, but because they've been so consistent, we will post ahead of time. Occasionally we'll actually just go ahead and check in with the program officer in those foundations and just double check if they post anything on their website saying that they're ramping the program. We would probably hold off in that case, but otherwise for those foundations that have been really consistent, we'll go ahead and just post ahead of time.
Right. And if there's any changes, it's a quick edit in InfoReady to make those changes.
Exactly. And oftentimes I'll make a notation as well if it's in anticipation of the release of the FOA so that everyone's aware that the FOA hasn't been released yet.
Great. Kendra, how do you manage that calendar, the yearly calendar? You know that there's opportunities that are run each year. How do you decide when to post?
Yeah, so currently I have a Airtable list that I have started putting all these reoccurring opportunities from our past records and history. I've been inputting them in there. And how I have it organized is the typical like external sponsored deadline. And then I'll have our internal deadline, typically when we would do that, which is about 12 to 8 weeks prior to the sponsor deadline. So I'll have those in 2 columns, and then I'm able to look at that and be like, okay, I need to post that this month. I need to post these ones this month. So I have it organized by month of when I need to post. And we do like to put those out, at least probably 4 to 5 months before a sponsor deadline. So kind of similar to Gabriella. But I do use Airtable right now to organize that. Any opportunities that don't have maybe the solicitation available at that time, if it's something that's been consistent, I will still post it and put, at the beginning of my description, this is an anticipated deadline. We will update this as the sponsor releases that information. And that's worked pretty well for us.
And
Until-
then you're collecting letters of intent there while you're waiting for an update and confirmation.
Yeah.
Great. Alyssa, I didn't forget about you.
So Airtable and Monday sound like great ideas, and I'm gonna check those out. I use good old Excel to keep kind of a list of the recurring opportunities. I generally try to time it so I'm posting things about 12 weeks prior to the deadline. The idea being 12 weeks out, it's posted. Maybe if I'm doing a 2-phase process, which we do most of the time, we start with the expression of interest or the LOI. We would have that due 10 weeks prior to the deadline. Then we aim to have a decision made if we're moving to a full competition, that puts us at about 8 weeks out, that the full competition is due internally, and then a decision as soon as possible after that. So it leaves roughly 6 weeks for the applicants to pull together their full application for the external sponsor. That's the ideal if we know of the deadline's coming, or the deadline is set and the RFP is out or the NOFO is out. I haven't been posting things that are anticipated, but it's something I'm thinking about, just to kind of avoid some of those shorter time frame scrambles. And if you have that caveat that, this is anticipated but not yet released, then that's helpful indicator to the faculty that things could change. And that I'm just thinking about with different sponsors, NSF is really good with more predictable recurring annual deadlines. So I feel really confident about having those on my spreadsheet and knowing when they're going to come up, and I can plan kind of the workflow around those pretty well. But that's not always the case with every agency. DOE has some things that are really predictable, but a lot that are not, and they're not annual either. So it's a mix again, as I'm kind of sometimes feel like I'm fumbling my way through it. But when the sponsor offers that consistency, I love it because it's just so much, you can manage all of your own work so much easier.
Yeah, being able to rely on that consistency definitely helps with better planning.
Mm-hmm.
Jalon?
Yeah. So I think that was a great point by Alyssa. Um, Especially like with DOE versus NSF. It is nice with having like an NSF that does have that consistency. And I know sometimes with DOE, I think I've seen opportunities, limited subs come through and maybe be doing 3 or 4 weeks, which obviously is very far from ideal. But we try to finish competitions up at least. We want to try to give PIs about 3 months before the funder deadline. And granted, that may change depending on what the funder's requirements are. If they have if they're looking for a full proposal, we try to give at least 3 months. And granted, we can't always do that given the circumstances. But it varies a little bit between our federal and state versus like corporate and foundation. I know corporate and foundation, I think, tend to be even better being on a schedule coming through at a pretty recognizable time during the year. It was one thing that I was going to touch on, but I think I might have lost it. But yeah, no, you can go ahead. If it comes back, I'll just
Happens to me all the time. It's happening to me right now. So we've got about 5 minutes left in the webinar. I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions to you. So InfoReady has the limited submission, the letter of intent functionality in the system that facilitates two-phase opportunities where you can convert to competition if need be. Jalon, do you use that feature?
yes, we do use it.
Alyssa, do you use that feature?
Absolutely, all the time.
Kendra?
Not really.
I'm going to come back to that, but Gabriella, do you use
Not
the,
typically. Not typically.
not typically. So I'm just pointing this out. I think Gabriella and Kendra's institutions are posting the highest number of limited submission opportunities on this call. Just really quickly, why do you typically not use the letter of intent feature? Gabriella?
A lot of it has to do with timing. And again, I think it's a function of how large the institution is. And so to have a two-tiered system often doesn't really make sense, particularly aligned with our policy. So it makes most sense to just, put that competition out there. And if someone's interested, then we'll know. And we do have times when, we'll get a very limited number of applications and we can kind of auto award from there without going to the full competition with a panel.
Got it. Cool. Kendra, is a similar situation?
Yeah, pretty similar. And I would say if a letter of intent or anything ahead of time is required or is not required by a sponsor, that is not the deadline that we go off of. We go off of the full proposal deadline.
Got it. Okay. No, that's good to know. It seems like the volume plus the timeline really impact the decision on that. Okay, so we're at time here. We've got 2 minutes left. I want to thank our panelists. Great conversation today. Really informative. I think some of these best practices, methods of managing limited submissions in InfoReady and like everything around it, promoting it, getting reviewers is really helpful. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. Got a little bit of information for you on a slide here. We've got a couple webinars coming up. On March 4th, it's a form building essentials training webinar, an InfoReady, really good one, especially with everything you can do in Form Designer. There's a lot of great features in there. I'll show you how to use them for a wide variety of processes, like being able to build an eligibility form or section in the form to help you out with some internal opportunities or nominations. And then later in March, we have a What's New webinar that's highlights of the last 3 releases, January, February, and what's going on in early March. So if you want to register there, just go to the InfoReady website. We have an events calendar there. And then on the next page, tell you how to reach out and connect with us. So if you're currently not using InfoReady, please reach out to my colleague, longtime colleague. We've been working together for almost 10 years, Max Dinerman. And if you're already using InfoReady and you have some questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be glad to help you out, put you in touch with your account manager or support. If you just want to reach out straight to support, they're always happy to work with you, and they're very fast, very great to work with. The InfoReady website also has a button there where you could submit support tickets directly to us as well. Once again, thanks all of these wonderful panelists for their time today. We did some prep work beforehand, so I really do appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and your knowledge with us and everyone on the call. As mentioned, the webinar is being recorded. We'll send that out. And there's also a webinar survey that will launch when you leave. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
great
Carlos.
day. You're welcome. Be kind to each other out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.